Hello and welcome to another edition of Qmailtoaster Video Magazine. I'm your host, Jake Vickers. In this edition of Qmailtoaster Video Magazine, we're going to talk about increasing the capacity for your POP3 services. Now, what are you talking about, you ask? Well, POP3 currently under Qmailtoaster is controlled by Qmail POP3D. It is not controlled by the Courier POP3 daemon. We use just the Qmail POP3 daemon to actually serve the POP3 information. And for those who are not familiar, what POP3 is it's a communication method between your client and a mail server that allows it to transmit mail, basically download mail from the server to your computer. Normally that's unencrypted unless you're using POP3 SSL, but there are some other things you can do with there. You can do TLS over that. We're not going to cover that in this video. We're just giving you some background information on what POP3 actually is, which, like I said, is a way for you to get your mail off of the server. And traditionally it's an unencrypted method, like I said, unless you're using POP3 SSL. Now, why would you need to increase the capacity, you ask? Well, it just so happens I was working on a server this week that has roughly about I'd say about 1,800 users on it, and all of those users naturally are all checking their email with POP3. And during your standard business hours, which over here are 8 to 5 during the day, during your standard business hours, when you have 1,800 people all popping their email, chances are pretty good that there's going to be a substantial number of them that are actually trying to get their email or pop their email all at the same time. And that's the scenario I was running into with this server that I was working on. Was they had too many people trying to access or download their email all at the exact time, and some users were getting well, the real key things you'll notice for this, that'll solve this particular problem is that some users were getting intermittent POP3 issues. One minute they would check their email and everything would be fine. The next minute they check it and it would time out. Wait a couple minutes, it would work fine, or it might time out again, but it would be intermittent. It would work, I'd say, about half the time, and the other half the time it would time out, or give them a timeout error. And usually when you start seeing errors like that, and you're on a rather, a server that has a number of users on it, I'd say probably 1,000 or more, then chances are you're probably looking at, you're running into some resource conflicts, and you really need to increase the capacity of your POP3 daemon, which is what we're going to cover in this video. So, now that we've kind of covered what POP3 is going to be and what this video is going to be about, let's go ahead and log into our server and we'll just get right into it. Okay. Now that we are logged into our server, and this server that I'm working on is the same one that I've been using in pretty much all the videos that I've done, so it'll be pretty much a stock configuration, and if you followed along you should be running about the exact same server that we're running in these videos. Now, what the server I was working on, what they were running into is out of 1,800 users, there were some concurrency limits, which are built into the Qmailtoaster by default, just to stop the overrunning of some resources and basically letting the machine run away like a wild horse. And what was prevalent in their particular situation is out of those, Qmailtoaster by default allows up to 200 simultaneous POP3 connections. When they had 1,800 users and they were all popping in at the same time, the chances are, well, actually it was happening for them, they had more than 200 users all popping at the exact same instant, which was causing user 201 who was trying to get their email to get a timeout error. And that's where you started getting your intermittent POP3 problems, because the next time that person tried to get their email, they might not have been user number 201, they might have been user 86, in which case it went through. So what we did is we increased the concurrency on their POP3 daemon, and I also bumped up the memory limit a little bit too, and I'm going to show you how to do that. This is a short, sweet, simple one. It's one of those things that you really don't think about, but I think it was worth or warranted putting a video on, because it's one of those ones where you get the problem and you really kind of scratch your head until you realize, oh yeah, and poof, the light goes on and you realize how to solve the problem. So I mean, this one's just going to take two simple, quick little changes, and basically what we're going to do is we are going to edit the supervise file for the POP3 daemon. And so I'm going to use VI, which is, of course, my favorite editor, and that's under var qmail supervise POP3 and run, because run is the actual file that calls the POP3 daemon. So now that we're into this file, what you'll do is you'll come down here to the TCP server entry here. And this is actually where it's going to control some of your settings. And here you can see that we have a limit of 200. That's defined by the -C option, which tells TCP server, which is what's firing up the POP3 or Qmail POP3 daemon, how many concurrent connections to allow. And for what I did for this particular user is I just took it from 200 and I bumped it up to 250. Gave them, a little bit more of a capacity there, and if hopefully they don't add too many more users. But if they do, I can go in and increase it a little bit more. I don't think you should go in and just arbitrarily double this number or anything. I think you should really try and increase it to what I call what I like to call the breaking point. For this particular customer, 200 users was not enough, but 250 does seem to be enough. So I set it at 250. And that's just to keep, brute force attacks or odd string things, from running away, eating up all the memory, things like that, causing you problems. Bump it up just enough to make the problem go away, but don't go any higher than that. That's my only advice. The second thing I did is here were the soft limit. Now this defines how much memory the process may use, not how much it's allocated, but the largest amount it's allowed to use. And here you can see we got this 9 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. So 9 million. And this is in bytes, which that'll work out to, off the top of my head, about 8.58 meg of memory it's allowed to allocate. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this 9 to a 10. So I'm going to add 1 0 in there. So now I've got 1 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And that makes it 10 million, which bytes into megs off the top of my head works out to 9.53 or 9.54 megs of memory it's allowed to allocate. Somewhere close in there. But what we've done now is we've increased the maximum concurrency from 200 to 250. So now user 201 is not going to get a timeout error because, well, we're allowing up to 250 concurrent connections now. And we're also bumping up the memory limit a little bit. Not a terrible lot, just basically about, almost 1 meg. But I think that's warranted when you start getting into that number of connections and that number of users. Now, another thing you can also do to streamline your POP3 daemon a little bit is to not look up the remote host name in DNS. And you can do that just by here after the -R adding -H. And what that will do is that in the log files, when it logs each computer that pops in to get the email, it will not do a reverse DNS lookup on their IP address and get their host name, or attempt to get their host name. It'll only just log the IP address. And that'll save a little bit of overhead and so the POP3 daemon that just served somebody their email can close a little bit faster because it doesn't have to go back and do a DNS lookup. Which, if the IP address is not cached, could be, a couple hundred milliseconds up to, I'd say, at max probably 1,000 milliseconds, which would be, right at a whole second, of extra time that process would need to look up the reverse DNS. And by putting that -H in there, you're just telling it, hey, I don't care about the host name. I just want you to look up, or you don't have to look up anything. Just log the IP address, which in most cases is really what you need. Unless you're really doing some forensics, all you need is the IP address. The only time the host name would be beneficial is, well, if you're in natting, getting the host name logged into there so you could tell what machine was actually in there doing that, or if multiple machines shared the same IP address. Excuse me. But I think putting the -H in there will help streamline a little bit, make it run a little bit faster for you. That's entirely optional. That's one of those things where if it's not giving you the problem and you don't need the extra speed, don't mess with it. That's pretty much it, and that should increase your POP3 load. Like I said, in the scenario that I ran into over the last week for the client, that allowed their 1,800 users. There was about probably 20 or 30 users that were getting intermittent issues at the time. This allowed them to stop getting those intermittent timeout errors just by doing two little quick simple changes. And now that we've increased it just a little bit, let's go ahead and let's save it, save and exit. And to really get it to come in correctly, you want to do Qmailctl stop to bring down all the daemons, which you can see all of them are stopped now. And then we'll start it again. Give it a couple seconds and then make sure that all of them are running. And now the POP3 has been brought back up so that now those changes you just made to allow 250 concurrent connections and increase the memory allocation just a little bit are now effective. And that's going to conclude this video. We thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next week.